Something that has gone extremely under the radar for NBA media, but it is extremely important for the landscape of the league. Ben Simmons is currently dealing with an arbitration case that will send shockwaves throughout the NBA no matter what the decision is. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why this decision and case about Ben Simmons is vital to the Raptors in their pursuit of a Kevin Durant trade. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. So if you enjoy what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I was on a road to 11,000 subscribers, getting really close to that milestone. And also, if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, be sure to drop a like to support the channel. Let's get to 350 likes on today's video. But this video, we're going to explain the Ben Simmons arbitration case, all the details surrounding the case, what can happen with the case, and why it is so important. And then once we figure out the importance of it, I'm going to let you guys know why this actually has a huge relation to the Raptors in the pursuit of trading for the Brooklyn Nets wannabe superstar Kevin Durant. So for starters, Ben Simmons, it's been a long time since Ben Simmons played a basketball game. In fact, the last time Ben Simmons played a basketball game was that very, very infamous Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks, where the Hawks shocked the 1 seed there. The 5th seed Hawks shocked the 1 seed by winning in Game 7 in Philadelphia. And the trademark play from that game is certainly Ben Simmons passing up an open layup with only Trae Young beside him to pass it to Matisse Thybulle. And the big significance of this play, I mean, obviously Ben Simmons, like a really tall guy against Trae Young, a really short guy. Ben Simmons, who had absolutely no impact on any of those playoff games, really, specifically in the fourth quarter, at least no positive impact. There was plenty of negative impact, which we'll talk about in just a sec. But the significance of this play is that this would have been a vital 2 points for the Sixers in a very close Game 7 in the fourth quarter. He gives it to Matisse Thybulle, a not great free throw shooter. Matisse Thybulle gets fouled, misses one of the free throws, which would have been pivotal, and that helped the Atlanta Hawks mount a 2-possession lead late in the game that the 76ers, in the end, could not overcome. But throughout the playoffs, like Ben Simmons, if he was getting played in the fourth quarter of playoff games, like in the Wizards series, I know the Sixers won the first round series against the Wizards, but in the fourth quarter, the Wizards would literally hack Ben Simmons as he's just casually dribbling the ball over the halfway line just to send him to the line, because they know, like, at most, he's going to hit one of those shots. And honestly, in the playoffs, the way he was shooting, he was likely going to miss both of those shots. So hack of Ben Simmons was a thing. It made him pretty useless in the fourth quarters. Doc Rivers had to bench him in those fourth quarter situations quite a lot. And since then, Ben Simmons has not played any basketball. There's been talks about it being his back. There's been talks about it being more of a mental thing and how he's just not ready to come back. And, I don't really want to joke about somebody's mental state because we don't really know what's going on with Ben Simmons. Apparently, he's working on making it better. Apparently, he's working on getting back into the NBA, and all that stuff is great. But it seemed like he was ready to come back, and the claims were that he was ready to come back, and especially after he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, there was that playoff series against the Celtics where they got swept, where they really could have used him, and the indication was that he was going to be back for that Game 4, but right before the game, like the day before the game, he decided, actually, I'm not going to play in that game. But this arbitration case is in relation to his role with the 76ers. Last summer, Ben Simmons decided that he no longer wanted to play with the 76ers, and he wanted to seek a trade. The 76ers ultimately were asking for the absolute world in order to get Ben Simmons. If you remember that absolutely outrageous trade that Daryl Morey requested from the Toronto Raptors, where he wanted the 4th overall pick, which ended up being Scotty Barnes, and Kyle Lowry signed in trade, OG Anunoby, and Fred VanVleet. He wanted all of that stuff just for Ben Simmons, an absolutely heinous asking price. And the Sixers, based on the asking price, never found a trade that they wanted, so they decided they're just going to keep Ben Simmons. But Ben Simmons took matters into his own hands and decided he just wasn't going to show up. He just wasn't going to show up in Philly. He wasn't going to show up to practice. He was just not going to show up to games and just not going to play. It led to Ben Simmons missing all of the 76ers games. They briefly brought him back in October, where, he was supposed to come back and play in October, but he decided that, he didn't feel right mentally. He didn't feel right with his back, and that he just wasn't going to play still. He wasn't ready to play still. and missed a ton of games. And the 76ers decided, well, we're paying this guy $33 million this year. We're paying him to play, and if he's actively choosing not to play, then we are just not going to pay him. I mean, that was a decision that led to Ben Simmons even returning in October because he wanted to fool them into thinking he was going to play, and he wanted to get his money. I mean, money talks. If you're hurting a guy's wallet, I mean, that's the best way to actually get to somebody. The 76ers were withholding that money, and the withheld money apparently equated to about $20 million. Now, Ben Simmons is already a millionaire, but $20 million is $20 million. That's a lot of money that was just not given to Ben Simmons. And that is what the current arbitration case is in relation to. Ben Simmons, his lawyers, are talking to the 76ers and their lawyers regarding how to solve this case. And they have an arbitrator trying to figure out what is all going on here. Ben Simmons didn't show up to work. The 76ers decided that even though he was on contract, they were not going to pay him. And there's $20 million that they did not pay him that they did actually owe him. Ben Simmons and his side, they feel that he is on contract, so they are contractually obligated to pay him that $20 million. And I don't know all of the little finicky things about the contract here, but like, if I didn't show up to work, I work in social media. This is not my, by the way, YouTube is not my main job. This is my side job. If I don't show up to my main job to work, I'm not going to get paid, but I'm also not on an NBA style of contract, so I don't know all of the little intricate details of it. However, the arbitrator who is going through this has a big decision to make because the arbitrator, I mean, likely the settlement is just going to be like 50-50. Maybe he gets 50% of what he's owed and both teams can kind of wipe their hands and go, all right, that situation is over with. Let's just move on. But the situation can become very different if the final decision during the arbitration case in regards to how much Ben Simmons is going to get paid is very favorable for one side or another. And this is where we're going to start to tie in Kevin Durant, who has requested a trade away from the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets seemingly at this point are just going to keep Kevin Durant. And people are saying, well, it's not within Kevin Durant's DNA to actually sit out. This guy's a baller. He's a student of the game. He wants to play. We don't actually know that. And this is where this situation can come in because let's say Ben Simmons, his side really win this case and the Philadelphia 76ers have to actually pay him all of that money. Imagine the amount of power that has just been placed within the players in the NBA market. Kevin Durant could decide that if he wanted to trade with the Brooklyn Nets, well, he's not going to show up to his job. He's not going to show up to play. He's just going to sit out. And the precedent for that case is now Ben Simmons, who did get paid to sit out those games still. So Kevin Durant could sit out and not lose any of those dollars. The other side of the story could be if it's very favorable for the Philadelphia 76ers. If they don't have to pay that money, players all of a sudden lose a ton of their power because if they want to force a trade, well, they can do that. They can sit out and try to force a trade, but it doesn't hurt the team in any way. They don't have to pay the guy. If the guy does not show up to work, which, I mean, makes sense. If you don't show up to work, you don't get paid. Obviously, things are different in the NBA, but teams can do that. If a player wants to trade and they decide, well, we're not getting a good trade in return for you, or no, you're too good, we're not going to trade you. If the player decides to sit out, the team's like, okay, well, whatever. It would have been nice to have you play, but we're still not going to trade you. And you know what? We're actually just not going to pay you either. So that's why this situation is so important, because all these Brooklyn Nets fans who are saying that, Kevin Durant's going to come back, and, NBA fans in general saying Kevin Durant's going to come back, and it's not within Kevin Durant's DNA again to sit out. Well, what if Ben Simmons and his side come out on top in this case, and Kevin Durant can now knowingly sit out of these games and still get paid all of that money he's owed? And again, Kevin Durant has a ton of money. All these guys have a ton of money, but like that is a lot of money that they could be losing out on by not playing in these games. Kevin Durant would all of a sudden have the upper hand over his organization. The player power would pretty much be out of control. These guys could force their way out of any team and just choose to sit out and know that they are still going to get paid, and the team is going to have to meet their demands or just pay a guy not to play, and that's not a very good situation. So they're going to have to take some trade offers that they don't necessarily want to take on and just to get rid of that player. This is why the Ben Simmons case is so important. It's going to set that precedent here. And for the Raptors who are in pursuit of Kevin Durant, and we've covered so many times in this channel, I've said so many times in this channel, the Raptors have the best offer on the table, even if that offer does not include Pascal Siakam and does not include the much bigger piece in Scotty Barnes. OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., and a bunch of picks. In fact, the Raptors have also said they don't want to give the maximum amount of picks in this trade. That, even though it's not a great offer, I mean, for Kevin Durant, it could be the best offer the Brooklyn Nets are going to get. It's better than Bridges and Johnson. It's better than Hero and Duncan Robinson. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of other teams other than the Warriors trying to make a trade. It's probably better than Wiggins and Kuminga as well, but if they add in Moses Moody, some things could get a little bit interesting there for the Golden State Warriors. But nonetheless, at this current point, based on the speculation, the reports that we've seen, the Raptors are in the best position and have the best offer to make this happen. It's still not good enough for the Brooklyn Nets, so they are still trying to keep Kevin Durant. And again, people are saying it's not like him to sit out. And also, if his money's going to get hurt like it did for Ben Simmons, then he's probably not going to sit out. And I can kind of agree with that. But if, again, this Ben Simmons arbitration case goes within the player's favor, things can change. Brooklyn, who already don't have a lot of leverage, may not have much of a choice but to trade Kevin Durant in the offseason. It may not be a choice. They may not have a choice but to actually trade him, and it will turn into a bidding war, and we'll see who gives the best offer. Again, at this present moment, it's looking like that could be the Toronto Raptors. As far as what I think the arbitration case and how it should kind of pan out in the end, I really don't like giving players all this power. It kind of ruins the league in terms of like how balanced it is, because people who are playing for bad teams, obviously, these are still people at the end of the day. They have some rights in terms of where they go, but from an NBA perspective, from a league perspective, from, just a product perspective, it's better to have players stay with their current teams. It's better to have players honor out their contracts. It's better to have players not requesting trades. I understand from time to time, the player has done everything in their power to make it work with the organization and things just don't happen. It doesn't seem like that is the case for Kevin Durant, but there'd be way too much player power in an already dominated player power type of market if you give them the ability to just sit out if they don't have their way. I don't think that should happen, but we have to understand with this Ben Simmons case scenario that it is a distinct possibility that could be a precedent that is set in the very, very near future. So what do you guys make of this Ben Simmons arbitration case? How do you think it's going to go down, and how do you want it to go down? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below on that. Ultimately, it would help the Raptors if it went within the favor of Ben Simmons, but for the landscape of the league and its future, I would prefer if it goes in favor of the 76ers, but we'll just have to see what happens. And if you found this video enjoyable or at all informative, be sure to drop a like to show your support to the channel. When you like this video, it lets YouTube know that, hey, if this guy likes this video, then there are other people with similar interests who may also enjoy this video, and therefore it is recommended to more people. It takes you just a second to like the video, but it does help me out a lot, I promise. And make sure, if you have not done so already, you are subscribed to the channel. You can help us on the road to 11,000 subscribers, and in return, I'll give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news at least 3 times a week. I'll see you again next time for another video.